Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Word Balloon Scene Missing. John Suntress here. We're talking about movies, and I got two good guys to talk movies with tonight. Sometimes we get really, really deep in these and talk about some obscure monogram films from the 30s or 40s, but a little more contemporary conversation tonight with, first of all, welcome back Larry Young from AIT Planet Lair and Astronauts in Trouble, Black Diamond, some of my favorite creator-owned comics of the last 20 years. Good to see you, Lair.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's good to see you.
And our returning champion. You've heard him a million times on Word Balloon, but it's nice to have him on video for a change. I'm always watching his Robservation show on his YouTube channel. It's Robert Meyer Burnett, everybody. Welcome back, Rob.
Well, John, we have a mutual affection for one another. I love to promote your show, and we've been talking for years. It's a great honor to be back. So thank you for having me.
Hey, man, movie talk. And you have a release coming, unless it's already out, the Blu-ray of The Hills Run Red? Am I wrong?
John?
Yeah?
In a world where John is frozen in time.
Oh no! Am I frozen? I'm moving. Can you guys not see me?
We couldn't see you. Suddenly you froze, and I'm like,
oh well. Could you hear me, or did my auto freeze? Oh, okay. Well then,
yeah, I totally heard you. You're good. We're gonna have that trouble, I think.
We gotta put tinfoil on Rob's ass. Maybe it's the Robservation in the Rob cave.
God,
I don't know. I was just saying, The Hills Run Red coming out soon on Blu-ray.
The Hills Run Red is coming out on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. The Hills Run Red is a film I produced back in 2009. My company, Ludovico Technique, Fever Dreams, Dark Castle Entertainment, and Warner Premiere, their direct-to-video division, is putting it out. And our executive producer was Joel Silver, which is insane.
Wow.
Die Hard, Joel Silver, Lethal Weapon, Joel Silver. And this movie is not, for whatever reason, apparently the studio, not big fans of our film, but it's finally coming out. Thank God. Scream Factory, which is a part of Shout Factory, is putting it out on Blu-ray. And one of the things that I did, one of the fun things I did quarantined at home, having not much to do, was I worked with director Dave Parker to create special features for the disc release. And we figured, I thought other projects I'd worked on was the most self-indulgent disc release ever. The Hills Run Red might be the most self-indulgent Blu-ray release ever, because I'd shot a lot of footage on location in Bulgaria that I had done nothing with, and then Dave went out and created material, and they let us do whatever, and the two of us created 6.5 hours of new behind-the-scenes footage for the disc. And even if you hate the movie, and I cannot tell you what you think of the film, but the film is what it is. I'm proud of it. But the special features are a lot of fun, because they really, if you want to know how a low-budget horror feature is made, I think we really cover every aspect of it on the disc. So even if you hate the movie, I think the special features do a lot to illuminate the process of low-budget horror filmmaking. So I'm proud of that. And I want to thank Scream Factory for allowing us to make the most self-indulgent. We're like, the movie's only 81 minutes, but we'd like to make 6.5 hours of special features. And they're like, okay. So we did.
That's outstanding, man. Well, you're a special features pro, having done it for over 20 years.
I know, it's so weird.
Lord of the Rings, X-Men movies. Yeah, I know, man. Honestly, one of the first conversations we had, you were telling me, and I know this is one of your big concerns, is the death of physical media,
right?
As all these streaming networks pop up and everything. And thank God for the specialty imprints that still want to do fun, interesting DVDs. You cover it very well on Robservations, your show. And I'm glad you're doing it and stuff. So that's terrific, and it's one of the things you do best.
Well, I think one of the unfortunate problems of, it's economics. It's like everything. Physical media of any kind. Like I'm surrounded by comic omnibuses, and I've got my long boxes, and I love I love the smell of paper. I love and owning I judge people based on their bookshelves when I go to their houses and what movies they own and what their CD collection is like. And I think it's important. I mean, look, maybe it's because one kid said to me, Rob, having discs and putting them in a machine is so 20th century. And I'm like, perhaps it is. But there's something about the physicality of owning things, that I think is. I mean, Larry, you publish material. Isn't it amazing? Like the whole printing process and getting pages back, and then when you finally get the final printed book and you hold it in your hands and you can smell it. Isn't that the best?
Yeah, it certainly smells good. I'm glad to hear about your behind the scenes stuff because my son is 12. He's really getting into that, and we watch all of the behind the scenes stuff. I'm a huge process junkie anyway. One of the books I did was Matt Fraction's first book was called Rex Mantooth, and it was only 36 pages of story. So we had a intro, a foreword, an afterword, a preface, and we had them annotated like Shakespeare. So every page had a facing page with a script and notes and stuff, and we made a 96-page book out of it. So when you said we have an 81-minute movie and 6 hours of stuff, I was like, oh man, I know how that works. You're just maximizing the stuff for people.
And you, didn't you do something similar? I was going to ask, Larry, didn't you do something similar like that with Astronauts in Trouble? Didn't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the first book I published was technically the collected scripts of my first book. So we had done floppies, the monthly books. Before we collected it as a graphic novel, we did the making of Astronauts in Trouble. Because when I was a kid, I saw Art of Star Wars. It was like my Bible. It's like you have the screenplay, all the pictures of the models,
Sure.
behind the scenes stuff, and I loved it. So I'm like, man, if I ever grow up and have that opportunity, yeah, exactly.
Although this doesn't have a script in it, but this is the hardcover.
It's like, I'm all about process and behind the scenes stuff.
That's outstanding.
It's great because that's how you would learn. I mean, what I find interesting about like a certain time of growing up, and I always use Star Wars as the demarcation point. Star Wars, when it became this populist phenomenon and everyone loved it, it was the first time they released like Ralph McQuarrie's portfolio and the Star Wars sketchbook and the blueprints, which were following on the heels of the Franz Joseph Star Trek blueprints from 75. And suddenly the process, and then they did the making of Star Wars on TV. And the making of and the whole process, I think, inspired an entire generation of kids and people, not just to make movies, but to make everything. And nowadays, it's sort of taken for granted. Like we get the Marvel, the art books. I've got some of them here, and they're great. Yeah, and I have to say, I look like right here. I've got my Eagle 2. I've got my Eagle 2
Nice.
Aluminum engine bells for the Eagle Lab kit that I got.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
and the booster kit, because you have to get both of those. And it's people are like, what? They're looking at me going, what? But Larry knows. If you look behind Larry, Larry knows. And it's just I think the entire process was what became the match or the
freezing too on poor Rob.
The flame that lit a whole generation of people to want to make movies and do all of this stuff. And I think it's kind of a bummer that now we're getting less and less of that, which is a shame.
No, I agree with you guys. Absolutely. And by the way, mentioning the Eagle and everything, Space 1999, I am a massive fan of the Stir Network. I shouldn't be because they're Sinclair Broadcasting, and I certainly know where
it's
Sinclair...
weird how everything's freezing.
Oh, don't worry, man. Like just roll with it, boys, because I am, don't be concerned. I can hear you both fine. So I think the people are hearing us. If you're not, if we're frozen for a second, it'll unfreeze. Don't worry.
Oh, now you're not. Now I can
say there you go.
I can.
And I was just about to say for the Stern Network, Space 1999, that channel that runs it constantly. You know, that's the only thing they run that cracks me up. And every now and then I'll watch another episode of it. It's great.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like I think the Eagle transporter and the like. I guess you had to be a child when the Apollo program was out, but the Eagle transporter, which was an advancement of what we saw in UFO, the kids loved that, and then like the Mattel toys when they made the big Eagle and with the 3 figures of Victor. I mean, who would have thought when I was 8? One of my favorite things was having a Victor Bergman action figure, and I mean, it was the greatest thing ever. You know, John Koenig and Victor Bergman and Helena Russell in space suits, like right behind Larry's shoulder. I mean, it's amazing that I don't think people today know, because nowadays you have so much of it, but back then you had like 1 or 2 things. And if you had it, it was like, oh my God, Mattel Toys is making a giant eagle.
The physical size of that thing was incredible.
Incredible. Well, it was like to scale. The figures. Right. It was the first time where I like I've said a lot I've talked a lot about how as children we were betrayed by the toy companies. They served us things that were like half scale. Or Mego would make a Batmobile and put a sticker on the side that said Batman. And you're like, what the hell is this? This does not look like what we see on the show. This is some weird toy that these adults decided I needed to see a Batman sticker. I wanted a Batmobile that looked like the Batmobile. Why do you have to condescend to me? And as a child, I couldn't articulate it. But the Space 1999 Mattel Eagle was the first time as a child I'm like, they believe in me. Mattel believes in me. They don't think I'm stupid.
Well, that was the same company that did Major Matt Mason, right? Did Mattel do Major Matt Mason?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think you're right. And by the way, that was before me. But
anything that had a spaceman in jeopardy of some kind, that was my thing.
So yeah, it was a little before your time, Rob. Matt Mason.
Yeah, I mean, I had Matt Mason figures, but I was too late to get the play sets. And when I would see pictures, I'm like, why was I so betrayed by the time I was born? Why can't I have this cool shit? You know, and it wasn't until like Mego came along and would make us like, oh, it's the Planet of the Apes, you know, headquarters, a tree set or whatever. So to me, 12-inch G.I. Joes and Mego figures with their stuff was great, but then Mego would betray you with the Batmobile. But to me, the 12-inch G.I. Joe adventure team, they're like, okay, the Vietnam War made G.I. Joes not cool. Let's turn them into worldwide adventurers. That's when I came in.
Sure.
I got the mobile support vehicle, and I got the helicopter, and I got the headquarters, and I got the jet boat or the airboat. It was amazing. And
hilarious.
Those are the days, man.
I hear you, man.
Where people didn't think kids were idiots. They punched up instead of down.
100% right, man. You're right about that. I love the toy talk that we're doing right now. That's fantastic. I just talked to Brian Volk-Wise, the Toys That Made Us producer.
I saw that. By the way, that is a great show. It's a great show, and so is the Movies That Made Us.
Yes. And now we're all old enough too to remember Bill Hicks, the stand-up comedian. And man, I finally saw on Amazon Prime the documentary American. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was the thing. I was reading Brian's bio. I'm like, oh my God, you've done a million things that I like. Holy shit. All the stand-up specials that he produced and other shows as well. I mean, yeah, it's even that Here's Johnny show that was on Hulu and CISO that Paul Reiser co-produced with him and stuff. How I didn't want to bring it up with him, but I guess he co-produced the Mad About You revival that was on Spectrum Streaming, the streaming service nobody has. I've yet to meet anyone that has Spectrum.
I didn't even know that they did that. They did a reboot of Mad About You.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah,
which and the thing is, Larry, no one knew about that. I saw them on TV. Yeah. I can't believe that they did like everything gets rebooted and everybody knows. Mad About You like flew under the radar. It was done for a channel that probably spent 6 cents promoting it. Nobody knew that it was there.
Yeah.
That's
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you boys about is, and Robert, it was I think you got a letter about it, talking about remakes and reboots and everything, and it's yeah, that's really been hand in hand with the great new groundbreaking stuff we've been getting on streaming. The other thing is all these different reboots, both in series fashion and also film fashion as well, and it's more times than not, all it does is make the original that much cooler. I mean, you get your Battlestar Galacticas every now and then. I'm trying to think of what else a positive reboot in recent vintage. Pardon me, but beyond make me spit up. I don't even know.
I'm trying to think too. Maybe the new Apes trilogy that didn't offend me.
I gotta be honest.
It didn't offend me either. I went into Rise of the Planet of the Apes I love the first original 5 Apes.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And I was so dubious. And I was like, this can't work, or is it supposed to be canonical? Like, what is it? I loved Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I love how they handled the apes, the CG, it was amazing, the character design. I love how they worked all of it in. And while I thought that Dawn and Rise, or War of the Planet of the Apes were both respectable, I didn't like them as much as the first, but they're all monumental achievements, and there's a respect and an elegance given to the franchise. And I thought that, look, you know what? These could work. Canonically, they could work. I mean, we haven't seen this. It's all right. I think they were really well done.
I didn't mind the nods to the originals, like having, mentioning the Icarus in Dawn or Rise, the first movie, and everything.
Right.
And I also liked the tone of the first movie because I felt it was very Outer Limits in a good way.
Yeah.
But it really, that's what it felt like to me. And and also, by the way, I would point to the 90s Out of Limits as a decent reboot that occurred, in television history. I thought, and certainly the 90s Outer Limits was certainly better than a couple attempts that they've made in the Twilight Zone over the decades.
I can't even watch those. The Straczynski one was okay back in the 80s.
There's a couple in the 80s.
There's a lot of good, they had great, like episodes like Nightcrawlers that William Friedkin directed, or Her Pilgrim's Soul, or there's the problem with the 80s Twilight Zone is the fact that the post-production was all on video. So they shot it on film, and now it's really hard to watch because the video effects are, really rudimentary, and even the quality of the image is. If there's one series, if I won the lottery, I would go and say, I would love to reboot, like, here's $20 million. Let's go reboot the 3 seasons of the 80s Twilight Zone and do it right, like Next Generation was. Let's retransfer all and have new effects artists just redo, because the visual effects in that show are really rough, and they torpedo a lot of, there was like great directors, Friedkin, Wes Craven, Joe Dante, who did the episode The Shadow Man, which I love. There's amazing people that worked on that show. They adapted Harlan Ellison, like Shatterday, and he directed an episode. He directed Grandma, which is based on a Stephen King story. So there was a lot of good stuff in there. It's just the production sort of betrayed it.
Interesting.
Bummer.
Yeah, man. I my buddy Marty Pasco was a story editor.
Yep.
On the show as well, and had a couple of original stories and rewrote a few things as well.
Rest in peace, by the way, to him.
Oh yes, yeah. That was a tough loss this year, man, and it would suck because we've known each other for 10 years, and especially last year when it was the 60th anniversary of the original Twilight Zone, and I'm like, Marty, you got to come on, man. I know you got a million stories about the 80s run. And literally a couple weeks before he passed away, he's like, yeah, John, he goes, just let me get a couple things in order and then we'll talk. And then, we lost him, and it's a shame. And he was young. He wasn't, young in terms of dying. Mid 60s, not an old man. So that's a shame. All right. That's depressing enough. Let's, we can move on. And I'm teasing. Marty's a good man. And
he did write some of Marvel's Star Trek, the motion picture era comics. We're dying, Egypt, dying.
He did the comics too. He did the Star Trek comic strip.
Yeah, right. Which I got the hardcovers. Which
There you go. There you go. We can't. I figured eventually we're going to talk about Trek. We can come back to other exactly.
What?
I haven't really been talking because you guys haven't been talking about Star Trek.
So Larry, exactly. I feel the word balloon audience maybe have heard mine and Rob's frustrations and stuff, but new Trek. Your thoughts?
I just I prepared myself by watching Voyage Home just now at dinner with my kid. We love that one because it's in San Francisco.
Sure.
But I was checking my Facebook, and my friend Lisa Ferry, who does Pink Raygun, the website, said, "Oh, I'm watching Wrath of Khan right now," and she told me how she got into Star Trek when she was a girl. She liked horses, and she changed over to whales. So her mom said, "Oh, there's this new movie." She wanted to see Voyage Home, and said, "There's this new movie with whales. Let's go see it." And that's how she got into Star Trek.
Crazy.
So I've been following Rob's stuff, and I'm dying to know how you got into Star Trek, because I started watching the cartoon of all things.
Interesting.
And I was talking to one of my dad's coworkers, and he said, the cartoon's based on a real show with real guys. And I found it, and for like 6 months, I thought it was a documentary, because the guy said, "Well, this is real." So I was like, "Wow, I love Star Trek. I love it."
Larry froze for me. I keep getting different freezings between all of you, but
I just was saying
I don't want to interrupt.
How I was getting into Star Trek, and I was asking you how you got into Star Trek.
Oh, well, I watched the original series. My mom says I started watching it when I was 3, which is not true, because I had to start watching it when it was put in a strip syndication in 72 or something. I was like 5 or 6. I don't know why or how I started watching the show, but I was obsessive about it. And in Seattle, where I was growing up, they showed it every night at 6:00 on Channel 11, and I had to watch it. Like it was like a Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man, Wapner. I had to watch Star Trek, and I don't know why or how it. I have no memory of how it started. The animated series was something that I couldn't believe. Like, I was really excited about it. In the first episode, I think it was I watched it when it was far Beyond the Furthest Star, which Sam Peoples, I think.
No,
wrote.
The first one was Yesteryear.
I think that was the first episode that was broadcast,
Yesteryear.
and I love that too.
No?
Rob's
Like
right.
when you're a kid, you're not
Beyond the
making a distinction between the fact that you're watching animation or live action. It was all Star Trek, and you could tell it was William Shatner's voice and Leonard Nimoy's voice. So, and it was, to me, the animated Star Trek was an evolution of the live action. And as a kid, I took this very seriously. I was not like, I love Star Trek. Like, this was really serious stuff. And I was as a kid, I probably annoyed the hell out of my parents, because it was very, like, they had to buy a black and white TV to put on the kitchen table, because I would not eat dinner with the family if I wasn't watching Star Trek. And that's how indulgent they were of me, hamburger helper back in the day. It's like, I'm gonna, give me, if I'm not watching. And it was a really, I was a social kid, and I loved people, but there was, for whatever reason, Star Trek was something that touched my soul, and I was very serious about it. My dad I found the James Blish, I'll never forget this. I found Star Trek 2 in our Island Park Elementary School library. And I couldn't really read. I could read some words, but I couldn't read that book. And I checked it out from the library, and I brought it home, and my dad read it to me when I went to bed. He would sit and read me the Blish adaptations. And, so you had the TV show, the animated series, and the books. And to me, it was all Star Trek. Like, I didn't sit there and go, well, the books aren't canon. I didn't know what the hell that meant. It was just Star Trek. And I loved it. And then the model kit of the Enterprise, and the Klingon battle cruiser, and the Galileo. And then later in my life, they made the exploration set and the K7 station. And it was so it meant so much to me as a kid, and it really shaped my worldview. It was a religion. It was a religion.
I hear you, man. I was 4, and I know, I don't know how often my parents watch it, but I have a very clear memory of it being on our big TV when it was on either Friday nights or Monday nights, and it was likely that last 69 season. Because also I remember that summer them pointing out very clearly when Armstrong and Aldrin were on the moon and explaining to me, my 4-year-old self, what was going on, pointing to the sky, pointing to the moon and going, you see that? That's where these guys are. And there they are on TV right now. That's happening up there. And I got it. Yeah. I understood. And so, yeah, I mean, I hear what Larry's saying in terms of treating it like a documentary, because it was a natural conclusion. And again, it was nearing its time. It was also an optimistic look at the world, at the universe, but Earth in a very tough time in the 60s, and trying to be very positive. And yeah, I mean, we've all kind of voiced, I know, our opinions online in terms of our frustration with the current version and its need to, again, you can't fault them for wanting to reflect what's happening now, I guess, but it does kind of abandon Star Trek's edict of, hey, eventually we're going to get our shit together and we'll go out to the galaxy and try and do right, and be inclusive. And it's so weird that it's seen, God, and forgive the tangent, boys, but on StarTrek.com, I know Rob is aware of this article. Larry, did you see that article on StarTrek.com that depicted Picard as a white colonialist?
Oh man. No. Oh, I did.
I know you did, bud.
I'm like, what? Like, what the hell, man?
You can swear. It's okay, Rob. You can use the F-bombs.
Well, the problem here's, I guess the problem is everybody wants to equate everything to what's going on now. And if you look at the great science fiction of the 60s, whether it's Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Star Trek, those are, to me, the triumvirate of greatness.
Absolutely.
And Star Trek is an elitist show. Star Trek basically says you have to be in the top 100th percentile of humanity. The best of the best are the people that are out there on the final frontier. We don't need people that aren't self-actualized. We don't, whether if you've got a problem with yourself, you can't be here. So Star Trek was about the best of us. Even Spock, a man of two worlds. He was the uber Vulcan. He had to be the best Vulcan, and he had to be better than any human being. So he doesn't have dyslexia. He doesn't have learning disabilities. He has spent his life, he was ostracized from his people. His father was like, you go to the Vulcan Science Academy. He's like, no. He had bigger aspirations. He had bigger dreams. So Spock was the ultimate example of a multiculturalist who also realized he had to be better than both cultures he came from. And I always thought that, isn't that cool that you're watching a show about, and by the way, they talk about racial diversity. Lieutenant Uhura, she was the first woman I ever had a crush on. And with her green hoop earrings. I mean, when I saw Mirror Mirror for the first time, I'm like, oh my God. It was the first time I saw a woman's midriff exposed. I mean, I'd seen women on the beach. Sure. I'd never paid attention until I saw Uhura on the bridge of the Enterprise. I'm like, that's what I want. I don't even know why. I was like 5 years old. I'm like, she's like, you didn't come back. I was thinking, I would come back. I would not spurn. I would not. Uhura, please bring me back. But that's what I nowadays, what I find the most distressing thing about Star Trek is, as an allegorical show, what they want to do is appeal to everybody who's not great. They want to tell us that, you know what? Everybody can go out in the final frontier. If you're on the spectrum, or you're this or you're that or whatever, you can join us. And I'm thinking you'll last 5 seconds in space. The whole point of Star Trek is what we aspire to be. It's about excellence. It's about achievement. It's about intelligence and education and the fact that we live in a post-scarcity society. So now, in trying to appeal to viewers, they want to make everybody I recognize that character. That's a character that I know that person. And I think that's incredibly wrong-headed. The fact is, Star Trek should always be aspirational. You shouldn't recognize those characters as people you know because they're better than you. You should aspire to be them, and that's part of the aspirational nature of the program. I don't want to watch characters in space on Star Trek that I recognize. I want to see characters that I wish I could be.
My issue with that is that they're so awkward about it.
Oh my God.
I don't understand. My thoughts on Discovery align with your but the one thing that I don't understand is they had a guy in a wheelchair. Now, just from an entertainment standpoint, it's the future. Like speaking to your aspirational point, you want to aspire that these things will have been dealt with. Like, give them an exoskeleton, maybe. I don't know. But like an actual wheelchair, it's like doing an episode of Will and Grace with the horse and buggy. It's like, what is that doing there?
I agree. And also, they had the woman, the part cyborg character who mostly was machine. So she clearly had, I believe she had cybernetic legs. So yeah, there was this incongruency of the wheelchair. Also, it's funny, Larry, you mentioned, your friends that were watching or that you yourself were watching old Star Trek. And I know Epix has been running the hell out of the original series movies. And it's funny, this idea of Picard as a colonialist that was on this StarTrek.com article. It's interesting because the person who wrote the article almost took the same attitude that the Klingon David Warner's character's daughter in Star Trek VI in Undiscovered Country.
Boer.
What's her name?
Azet Boer.
Thank you. And she spouts those same concerns about the Klingons joining the Federation. You want us to usurp our identity and become, little cookie cutter Federation people, and even the inalienable comment that one of the crewmen makes. She's like, the very word she goes is racist, and I mean, it really is that attitude. And it's like, God, again, these original movies handled this stuff so much better from a storytelling standpoint and gave contrarian opinions of the Federation by outsiders and their fears in a much more eloquent way. And everything is heavy-handed in both Discovery and Picard. And all right, so let's ask the obvious question: Is Picard dead, or is his essence in this ridiculous android body, and he's still alive?
Nothing has made me more mad than the end of Picard. It's the whole is Deckard a replicant or not? Like, if Deckard is a replicant, that movie means nothing.
I completely agree with you. Oh my God, thank you for saying that.
Yelling at each other, right? But a robotic human who learns to be human from a robot is so grand. It's deft. It's poignant, and so Picard learns what it's like finally to be a human. Have some emotion, grow, have the ultimate sacrifice, and oh wait, no, you didn't. You look exactly the same, and you're going to last as long as you would have anyway, but you're just a robot. What are they even trying to say? Life is meaningless, or it's I don't know. I don't even know. I get kind of tongue-tied about it because I just want to point and, what are you people doing? I don't know.
It's so, well, first of all, like, what I found most offensive about this show, of the 187,000 things I found offensive about this show, is that, okay, it's all basically based on one episode of Next Generation, Measure of a Man, Melinda Snodgrass's Measure of a Man, which is a wonderful episode, basically a bottle episode where we deal with the fact of Data's personage. And the whole idea of, first of all, this is what I can't stand about modern television science fiction. It's brain dead. It's stupid. So the idea of synthetic life, let's define, what is that? According to Star Trek Picard, it's anthropomorphized machines. Like, synthetic life only looks like humans. Like, Why wouldn't you have all kinds of synthetic lives at the submicroscopic level, all the way up to, I don't know, giant? If there's some giant gas giant, wouldn't you have synthetic life that could plunge in and out of the clouds of the Jovian atmosphere, like in 2010? The idea of synthetic life, according to the writers of Star Trek Picard, are just anthropomorphized machines that look like humans, which really isn't synthetic life at all. They're just machines. So why would they pose a threat to anyone? What they're talking about, because the people that write this show have not read or watched many science fiction things in the world, like Blade Runner. You go back to Blade Runner. Those are physical beings. Those are actual flesh and blood creatures that apparently have everything that a human being has, including a brain, so they have to imbue them, give them memories so their brains don't go kaflooey. They actually are real flesh and blood people. Do they have a soul? Perhaps, which is what the point of that movie is. But with Star Trek Picard, they don't even know what their synthetic... Basically, it's about a robot uprising. And the only reason that they call them synthetics are because the robots are anthropomorphized to look like people, when in actuality, they're really not. They just happen to be built that way. And it's not like you have a group of synthetics who are asking, like Roy Batty is in Blade Runner, I want more life, father. I have a 4-year lifespan. They're just machines. They can live forever. What do they care? Why would there be unless you're schizophrenic like Lore was or whatever, you've basically built machines. They're not synthetic life. Replicants are synthetic life. These are just machines. And with Star Trek Picard, they never define that. The writers don't understand the difference. So I'm watching this show, I'm like, this is inane. It's not like you have a slave race of people. They're just machines. Do they think of themselves as humans? Do they want liberation? Did we ever see one of those synthetics going, I want you to treat me like what? Like are we treating you? If you don't want to work here, leave. I mean, it's so wrong-headed. They never defined any of this. And you're just supposed to say, like, and then there's the super Cthulhu race out there, the Lovecraftian old gods that have taken over the galaxies that are like, we're going to come destroy all the organics. Why? Because this is the most basic, rudimentary, B-level science fiction plot. Machines are going to kill humans. Well, even in Battlestar Galactica, the Cylons could procreate with human beings, which brings up a whole different... They're not machines. If you can biologically procreate with a human, you're not just a toaster. So there's a Picard, brain dead science fiction. I wrote better shit in the 5th grade.
I'm hip. Yeah, I know, man. It's, again, there were a million things wrong with it.
Of Measure of a Man and Battlestar Galactica, that's that great line that she goes, I'll rule summarily, fine, Data's a toaster. You just see like all of Battlestar Galactica in that one line, which I love. Linda Snodgrass. That episode's great.
Well, or to Rob's point, when you were saying, Rob, that again, we don't know what the synths want or anything. Unlike Borg, when Hugh really steps up and is like, no, I am Hugh. I am not another robot. I am not a drone. I have purpose and I have meaning. And it's, so many of the things were much more eloquently handled 30 years before on Next Gen and the other iterations of Star Trek. I know Rob has been warming up to Voyager, and I know that slowly it's been coming around. And I always say like a third of Voyager, I think, were really good ideas and really good stories.
I agree. But, another thing about even the way the Borg are treated in this show, it's like, so it opens showing Borg being reclaimed. They're just people that basically have suffered a techno-organic virus. These were all sentient beings with lives and planets and families and all that. They didn't ask for what happened to them. So we've seen, beginning with Locutus, Picard himself, you can reclaim people from the Borg. the Borg, it is a disease. It's a virus. But in Star Trek Picard, the drones that haven't been recaptured yet, or they haven't been brought in, we've still got thousands of them. They treat them as if they're expendable, when really they're just people that are in the hospital suffering a horrible infection that we know can be cured. We've known it can be cured from the fourth season opener of TNG when Picard is reclaimed. So even then, they're not treating as far as Picard is concerned, the show, not the man. Right. How are they defined?
Right.
And now there was another article talking about Seven of Nine. She was always queer.
I saw that article.
I'm like,
that's what I read.
I'm like, are you kidding? Like, how? Why is it that we, as human beings today, why is it that we want to see ourselves? We like, this character needs to be reflective of me. I always thought the characters in stories are always aspirational, even the anti-heroes that learn or do something. Why is it we want every character to make me feel good? And I'm like, no. The point of storytelling is to not see yourself necessarily reflected exactly, but to see parts of yourself. You can identify with a character, but it's nowadays everybody wants to we have to represent our audience by making the characters in the show exactly like the people watching the show, which I think is ludicrous.
Well, regarding that article, because I think it's part of a bigger change in, I guess, because it's not this is an editorial. It's one person's opinion. And I'm not assuming this is a staff person. I think this person probably wrote something, and the people at StarTrek.com are like, "Oh, that's cool. Let's put it up." But I know from teaching audio production, as I did this past semester for Columbia College here in Chicago, I noticed, and this is going to sound like old man yelling at clouds, I suppose, but I noticed that this YouTube generation really needs to put themselves in every piece of observational reportage or editorials that they write. I think, in my opinion, and it's like, well, no, the story is the subject. You're by all means convey your opinion, but do it in the to service the story that you're telling. I don't care what your personal opinion is, and it just seems to me, I could be wrong. And Rob and Larry, you're both guys that read that same stuff that I did, because I used to love the Best of Trek books where we would get those interesting essays
for those.
We get really interesting essays, but it wasn't about, as I recall, the writer putting them, them seeing themselves in the show. They would just make these good observations and stuff. But now it's all, like you said, I see me and these characters. Fine, whatever. God bless you for having that opinion. But yeah, I just kind of feel that it's a lot more declarative. And God, it reminds me too of, putting it in comic terms, when Nick Spencer wrote his Secret Empire story, and Cap was, under the influence of Hydra and Hail Hydra. And all these people were writing these stories about, oh my God, I'm crushed. I can never read another Captain America story again. It's a fucking story. Calm the fuck down. Jesus. And he's going to be fine at the end. But you know what I mean? I see too much of themselves in a lot of the editorials that are blogging today.
Just so you guys know, I'm getting a little, John, you're frozen. I can see you, Larry, but I can't hear John. It comes in and out.
Oh, all right.
So
am I still frozen?
No.
Oh,
I can hear it.
I was just saying, yeah, again, that idea that the reportage is much more about themselves than about the subject they're covering.
Well, I find that strange. I mean, to me, the whole reason that I'm surrounded, this whole room is full of books and comics and stuff. It's not about me. It's all about things that I can learn from and aspire to and change and grow and be a part of. And like, I don't want to see me in Captain America. I want to see, Captain America out there, and I want to aspire to be him. Yeah, I don't want him to reflect me.
Yep.
I want him to be Cap.
I have this working theory that it's all political. That this massive Star Trek thing with whatever they're doing in the StarTrek.com. I can't read that site because everything does not seem to be about Star Trek to me. So there's this giant gaslighting thing that's going on politically in the world where people are trying to tell us, no, this is what's really happening. And I just feel like Star Trek is not Star Trek. And I'm the only guy that's like, this isn't Star Trek, people. Wait, Picard's a robot? You know, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get inarticulate about this because it means so much to me. It's like how Star Trek seems like it's been going on for 50 years. It's a thing. And the people, the stewards of the property now seem like they don't understand what they're writing. It's great. Call it, generic action space adventure. It'd probably be my favorite show, but it's not Star Trek. It just isn't.
I agree. I mean, I think it's they play at Star Trek, which is what I keep saying, and and also again they're so hard. They want to declare themselves woke rather than just show us.
Freezing for me, just so you know. John's frozen now.
I was just saying, Rob, that Star Trek needs to be woke, but they also have to. They declare it's woke rather than show us how through the storylines.
Well, today I saw somebody. I retweeted a story about how Far Beyond the Stars that Avery Brooks directed, a great episode of Deep Space Nine that is more prescient than ever. It's such a great story, and like people are surprised, like, oh my God, Deep Space Nine in the 90s predicted where we were going now. Yes, that's why Star Trek was good. Star Trek was way ahead of you. And by the way, we've devolved into a bunch of fucking idiots that cannot think and cannot speak to one another. And we're so tribal. And what side of this are you on? I grew up as a Star Trek fan. I feel like our civilization is devolving before my eyes and everybody's becoming a fucking idiot. Like what? And the current stewards of Star Trek, I feel like the great hostage crisis has been going on since 2009. Like everybody who's doing Star Trek, it's like, oh, we have to make it the way it should be. I'm like, no, it was already the way it was. That's why it is endured. That's why I've got thousands of Star Trek comics and books and everything. I mean, all the people that are making Star Trek now, let's face it, they're fucking idiots. And I'll say it. I'm never going to work with them. Sorry. I'm like, be smarter. Michael Chabon, whose books I love. I'm like, he wrote an article. I fixated on Spock's smile in the cage, and I wondered what was that all about. That was a production error. You should not write stories about why he smiled in the cage. That is wrong-headed. Now, you're gonna give him dyslexia or whatever. Fuck you. Yeah. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, give me a break. You're going to give Spock, a man who was the best in two worlds, a learning disability? Because that's what you as a writer have decided that's what you're going to do today? You're a fucking moron, and you don't understand what that show is about. And I'm happy to say that, and it gets me angry because what they're trying to do is the idea of that kind of excellence. That kind of excellence is what humanity should be aspiring to. We should not sit around and go, you know what? Everybody might have a learning disability and we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Fuck you. On the final frontier, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. When you're out there fighting an 11,000 mile long space amoeba, your feelings don't matter. I want Spock. I want smart Spock, not a Spock that's like, I'm dyslexic. No, you want the smartest motherfucker of two worlds to go out there in a shuttlecraft and find the antibodies and detonate that antimatter and save the goddamn galaxy. And if you're not up to the challenge, fuck you.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Star Trek is all about a bunch of underachievers now.
Yeah,
and that's what it's about.
Muddling their way through. Yeah,
and that's what I hate about it. All of the characters in Star Trek are fucking morons. Anson Mount was the only guy that maybe seemed like he might be able to achieve something. Let's make a show about dyslexic Spock and the one dude that seems like he's a real Star Trek character. No, all the Star Trek characters that we've been getting since Star Trek '09. Spock, Mom's dead. Fuck. What the hell, man?
Dude, I honestly,
I don't want that guy on a starship. He can't control his emotions. Fuck that guy. Give me somebody from the Science Academy from Vulcan. And the thing is, you know what? Everybody now is like, I really want to feel for these characters. They're like me. No, they're not like you. They're better than you. But now they've made them all stupid and dumb and incompetent. And oh my God, I'm Tilly. And I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. We're all dead. Fuck off.
I know I don't like Tilly either. I hear you, man. No,
this has been going on for a
while.
while.
I apologize for my bad language.
No, you're all good, man.
But I get wound up about this because I don't understand where we are as a society. Why is it that our feelings are important? How about the fact that why don't you be the best you could be? Why don't you be a great human being? Because if we do meet people from other planets, they don't know what your feelings are. They don't care about your past. They don't care about your broken relationships or the fact that your father didn't love you enough. They don't care. And if you're having a first contact situation, we're not at that level. You need to be the smartest person in the room. You cannot allow your emotions to dictate a first contact situation. Well, you know, I fucked this first contact situation up and this planet was destroyed because my dad didn't love me. Give me a break, man.
This is a production issue, though, don't you think? I mean, they haven't been taking chances for a while. You did say that you were liking Voyager, and I thought Voyager was the biggest missed opportunity of all time.
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Oh, now Larry froze. He'll unfreeze in a second.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. Of course I freeze.
There you go.
But no, I know. Go on. Look, just to set you up. I mean, I thought the problem with Voyager was it had a really interesting premise that they never followed through on, and they just made it like the idea that a Federation ship is in a place where the Federation they've been cut off, and how do you bring Federation values to the Wild West? The wild universe.
Well, I would have gone even crazier. Like make a Janeway Ahab, and her white whale is getting everybody home. And in the pilot, where they have internal conflict on the ship with the McKee taking over, the at the end of the pilot, the head McKee guy has a Starfleet uniform on. I was like, what am I watching? They would have taken over engineering and shut off your air support and said, hey, now you have to deal with us to get power. I mean, make that show, you know, and when they finally come home, it's like got alien engines on the side, and you know, and Janeway literally has a leg off. Like, make her Ahab, right? Shit happens. Well, everybody took a shower and just, thanks, Borg Queen.
You guys know that was the network interfering UPN saying, hey, we want another next gen, and stifling them. And Rob, you know from the special features you made from Enterprise and what they wanted to do with that first season of Enterprise, keep it earthbound.
I can see Larry now.
Yeah,
but I think. That's what I think is going on now, though, John. Is that the corporate guys are just going, "Hey, come on, everybody, sing Kumbaya." That's what Star Trek should be.
I don't know. I'm not sure, because again, they got to see the balance sheet, though, that the new direction for Discovery and all that stuff. There is an audience for it, and God bless you if you love this stuff. But there's also a very vocal older audience that doesn't like it. So they've got a divided Star Trek nation rather than everyone loving what they're doing. So I don't know.
But even like merchandising, let's as somebody who has fetishized the Starship Enterprise since I was a child, even the Enterprise, even the design of their starships is not appealing. They're not pretty. The design of the show, the uniforms are those Discovery uniforms are moronically dumb.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you're like, the colors, the piping with the brass, like what? Like
even
what?
On the shoot.
And what's really interesting is that as somebody as a kid watching everything, there was an evolution. One of the things about Star Trek that people forget is that when Star Trek the Motion Picture was made, it was there was a continuity created with Star Trek. Like, oh, they're taking into consideration 5 years, 2.5 years of the director of Starfleet operations and all that. So they took into consideration the aging of the characters, and there was an evolution to the universe that seemed like, I thought as a kid, I'm like, if they're going to change the Enterprise, yeah, I'm going to never watch this. But when you saw the new Enterprise, it was like the most gorgeous, amazing. Like, if the Starship Enterprise is the coolest thing you ever saw as a kid, it was. I didn't think they could make it cooler. But when you saw the Enterprise in the motion picture, the structure of like engineering, like the impulse deck and how it worked with the warp drive, it was so thought through and form followed function. And there was there was so much thought put into everything. And you don't feel any of that with modern Star Trek. It seems like you're seeing disparate ideas from 100 different people, and there's no singular vision behind any of it, and none of it makes sense. And that has never been more so exemplified by when you see those external shots of the turbo lifts, the roller coaster turbo lifts in like, what the hell is this? Like, here's the thing. Here's how I know that everybody on that show is fucking dumb. Because if you are, and I'm sorry to say this, but all of the people who are working on modern Star Trek, now I have friends that are working on season 2 of Picard, and I'm sure they will come in. But when you understand what a starship is, like let's just assume it's like a submarine, but in space. And you're looking at a video of a turbo lift that's on a track like a roller coaster, and there's all of this empty space around it.
Yep.
The question is, where is this empty space on a ship that's traveling through a vacuum like a starship? There's no empty space. A turbo lift is completely surrounded on all sides.
Sure.
And you see in this, and the thing is, somebody looked at that effect shot and said, "Yeah, that looks cool, man." Somebody approved that. So there was iterations of that effect shot. So it wasn't just like somebody had an idea and said, "Well, that's stupid." Somebody actually had to approve that and go, "Yeah, that looks cool." No one thought to themselves, "Well, we really need to believe that these starships are real. Why would there ever be empty space on these ships?" And there wouldn't be. And when you see something like that, it throws all of the rest of it out. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because the monumental stupidity from just one shot, one effect shot, means nothing else you're telling me has been thought about or considered. You're all fucking dumb.
I hear you, man. And the infinite engineering room that you see on both, Discovery and on the Enterprise and on Discovery and everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, yeah, I agree with you about Shaban and his fixation on Spock smiling. I don't understand it. I don't know. I mean, again, I remain optimistic that hopefully they will have heard the audience that was complaining, and what they do with Strange New Worlds, if it does become a real production and, they move ahead with it and everything, I hope they're listening to us. But again, I have a bad feeling that it's still the same people that are writing the two versions that I'm not crazy
I read Alex Kurtzman's pilot script for Clarice, the Silence of the Lambs. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm a huge fan of Brian Fuller's Hannibal. I think it's an incredible, for something that's already been adapted so many times. I think Hannibal's incredible.
That's another good reboot. Yes.
What he wanted to do was he didn't have the rights for Silence of the Lambs, the Clarice Starling book in that series. So his co-creator of Discovery somehow got the rights and wrote the most sophomoric, ridiculous pilot script that flies in the face of everything Brian Fuller tried to do in Hannibal. And when I'm looking at this to compare and contrast, and I'm like, if you're following up Hannibal with a show, you better be a fucking great writer. You cannot spend the first 15 pages of your script with a character talking to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and telling you the story. I mean, it was a terrible script. And I felt like it was flying in the face of Brian Fuller himself. And I've read all of the original. I can't tell you how I have them. If I have them, do I? I mean, I have all of the original story outlines for what Discovery was going to be. Brian Fuller had designed all those characters and had done all this stuff. Was all of it perfect? No. But it was a lot better than what we got. And it's sad to me.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I'm with you, man. Should we move on to go ahead?
Well, so I'll tell you. So I can't. I was going to do a show about this. There's an interesting part of Star Trek history that not a lot of people know much about because it's never really been covered. And Eric Jedrinson, who is a writer-producer who was instrumental in making Band of Brothers, was a producer who hated science fiction, didn't know anything about Star Trek. But because of Band of Brothers, after Enterprise went off the air, he was begged by the Paramount brass, Donald DeLine, Carrie McCluggage, all the people that worked for Paramount at the time, to come on and reinvent Star Trek post-Enterprise. He didn't want to take the job, but reluctantly he did. And he wrote a script called Star Trek The Beginning, which was the first of a proposed trilogy. The script was done. It was written. And he, as a writer, approached it as if Star Trek, up to that point, the entire canonical Star Trek from 1966 to 2005 was real. And just because Band of Brothers, he delved into history. So he knew nothing about Star Trek. Like Nicholas Meyer before him for Star Trek II, he delved into all of canonical Trek history. And he wrote a script about the outbreak of the Romulan War because that was something Enterprise was leading up to.
Yep.
Now, this script is done. I've read it. I have a copy of it. It's written. It was written for Paramount. The week that Jedrinson turned the script in to Paramount, Donald DeLine, who ran the studio, was replaced the week he turned it in. So as anyone knows about Hollywood politics, everything that anybody had in development is gone. It's finished.
Yep.
So that was the end of Star Trek The Beginning. It, in my estimation, it was only a first draft. It is a fantastic script. And there's such canonical fealty to what came before and references to things I love this script. And the reason I loved it was because he approached it as if the Star Trek universe was a real thing that already existed. So he was delving into it and going, okay, this fictional universe is here. It's been defined. So I'm not going to come in and change it. I am only going to work in what has been given to me. And as an outsider and somebody that didn't love Star Trek, or he was a self-professed non-Star Trek fan, he fell in love with working with the franchise, writing the script. And his script, it has such canonical fealty to the entirety of canon, even though it's set just after Enterprise. When you read the script, you're like, wow, this is Star Trek, the same way that Nicholas Meyer, when he wrote Wrath of Khan, did the same thing. And I looked at, when I was reading the script, it's an episode that's coming up. We had Jedrinson on Inglorious Treksperts, and when you hear him speak, you're like, there's the guy that should be running Star Trek.
Wow.
And you know, I'm going to do an episode of my own show where I actually cover the entire script, but it's an amazing thing. And I think even now, if I was running Paramount, I'm like, they have a script. They paid for it. It's already been written. It's the first of a trilogy that deals with the Romulan War, a canonical trilogy that uses all of canonical Star Trek in a really interesting way. Now, of course, the people that run Star Trek now would never allow that to happen because of the money involved. But as far as Star Trek goes, I thought it was a great script. And I'd never read it before, and hearing him talk about it, it's sort of an era that has never been talked about, but it was a script that was commissioned, it was written, and it's terrific.
Cool. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think the Romulan War is an area of Star Trek where you can go and feel like Star Trek without, and also have new territory to cover, and like you said, connect the dots, because yeah, there's certainly room to create new ideas and stuff. So no, that's a shame. Jeez. Larry, any other Trek thoughts before we move on to James Bond or some other topics we could talk about?
No, I'm good. I think John Wright should be running Star Trek. That's who I think should be running Star Trek.
I hear you, man. No, I don't disagree. Well, James Bond, we'll see what happens with No Time to Die. I happened to catch a little bit of Casino Royale today. I'm interested, guys. Who was the best of all the franchise Bond directors? I'll let you guys go in. I have my thoughts immediately, but who do you think was the best director handling the Bond franchise?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'll start then. I'll say I really do believe that it's Terrence Young, because I really think he created the template in the best way. I can appreciate a couple other guys that I'm sure will come to mind with you guys as far as early Bond directors. I'll tell you, and I feel bad for John Glenn, because I think John Glenn was a good first unit director that the Bond films got very ordinary when he was kind of, directing them and stuff. And a guy that never gets any credit. Oh God, now I'm blanking on his name. The great editor of all the early
Peter
Bond.
Hunt.
Peter Hunt,
who directed on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Because I think that's the best. I think it's one of the best films in the entire franchise. And but yeah, I really do think Terrence Young, creating the style and everything. And I mean, and again, there's a guy right behind him that did a hell of a job on a couple of the early Bonds and even a couple of the more Bonds as well. But what do you guys think?
I'm not a giant Bond guy.
No?
No, not at all.
Oh, I'm shocked, Larry. I thought this was going to be in your way.
I love the early Sean Connery ones. I agree with you about on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think that would be everyone's favorite Bond movie if Connery had done it. But yeah, sure. I don't. After that, it wasn't really bad.
I mean, I think the quintessential Bond film is From Russia with Love. To me, that was a Terrence Young directed film that I think that most closely embodies an adaptation of Ian Fleming's work. I really like that. And what's again with the Bond franchise, in the 60s, Bond was a franchise that set a tone. It was new, and people forget, like when Goldfinger opened, it played 24 hours a day in theaters. I mean, it was a monster. The Bond franchise was a monster franchise when it was amazing. It was huge, but it also you're dealing with, like, in America, middle class America, the greatest generation coming back from World War II, and they had the people didn't have passports, they hadn't traveled. And they were people that were just trying to get their kids to go to school, and the Bond franchise showed them a life and a world that none of them would ever see. And then as it moved through the 60s, and then with everything that happened with Vietnam, it became sort of outmoded. And then in the 70s, Bond was chasing something like blaxploitation with Live and Let Die, and martial arts movies with Man with the Golden Gun, and then I Love Spy Who Loved Me. It became something weird and unique, this giant epic Bond thing. And then ever since then, Skyfall was just chasing The Dark Knight. and we've never had, like, Bond hasn't had a real identity unto itself for a very long time.
Oh, no, John Riggs points out that Martin Campbell did 2 great recent Bond films. Introducing new Bonds. And I mean, I do think Casino Royale is a great, fresh, recent Bond. I mean, God, now it is 14 years old. I like Skyfall better than you did, Rob, and that's okay. I mean, and I can appreciate the flaws in Skyfall, and I won't disagree with you. But well, it's a movie where Bond fails repeatedly. You're watching the hero of your movie completely fail. And if I wanted to watch some middle-aged crazy or somebody defining themselves, Bond would not be my first choice. And in that film, he fails from the opening scene to the very end when M dies under his care. Yeah. And I'm like, I hated it. I hated Skyfall. I know it made $1 billion.
Skyfall's like an M movie, though. It's not a Bond movie. Like
that, it is very much in that movie. Yeah,
that movie works for me if Moneypenny really did kill Bond in the beginning, and then Q like sort of RoboCopped him. Like, and the whole middle part was some kind of purgatory dream that he was having. as he got RoboCopped at the end. That's the only way I can even watch that movie.
I'll tell you my favorite pre-title sequence of a Bond film in the Pierce era was Die Another Day, right? Wasn't that what it was called?
Yeah, where he gets captured by the North Koreans
and gets the shit kicked out of him by the North Koreans. And also I just love that whole thing where M's like, you were too expensive to get back. And I kind of liked that idea. And sadly, and I think she's a great actress, but as soon as Halle Berry steps out of the water, I lose interest in Die Another Day. It really was that opening that I think was very, very interesting, and him in Hong Kong kind of pulling some great James Bond stuff and everything. But yeah, I'll tell you, all right. I think Lewis Gilbert is forgotten sometimes when they talk about great Bond directors, because he did You Only Live Twice and Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. Yeah. And now you see, a lot of people love Moonraker because of all the crazy space stuff. And Larry, I don't know how you feel about it. See, I'm the same way, Larry. It's
like Spaceballs to me. It's like I can't take things I love getting made fun of.
Too silly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I didn't even see any of the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies. That's how
I can appreciate that. Larry's in the Twilight. Larry's back in the Phantom Zone now. We got him stuck again.
I'm having this weird thing where my thing is just flashing, and I feel like I'm in some kind of Clockwork Orange test.
Yeah, I mean, like, now I can see you both, but you guys keep cutting in and out. I'm just sitting here like I wait till you come back.
Yeah, I don't know. So, what do you think, John? I was maybe we should call it.
Or at least you want, guys. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that the connection is bad. If you guys
I'd be
want,
happy to do this again, though. Rob, it was awesome talking with you.
Yeah, it was
John,
great to talk to you.
You know I love you, John.
Well, thanks, Larry. Likewise.
You keep up the good work.
Well, and Rob, I always enjoy our conversations, and at the very least, I'm glad I got you to promote Hills Run Red. I'm glad.
I just hope that I didn't alienate all of your Star Trek audience by being. It's hard for me. I feel like I'm a fundamentalist, religious zealot when it comes to Star Trek, and I'm watching my religion being bastardized and changed and turned into something that it's not. And I feel for me, it was such an aspirational thing. And it was like, my whole life, I'm like, I want to be, one day, I hope to be these people. I hope I can be good enough in something. And now I feel that Star Trek is all about making the audience think that they identify with each of the characters. Like, I am that person, as opposed to one day being one of those people. And I find that just weird.
I agree, man.
And I look at them and I'm like, how do you aspire? Why would you want to be any of the people on the ship? None of them are competent. None of them. No, I've not seen an episode of modern Star Trek where any of the characters have done anything that has made me want to be one of them. They're all fucking dumb.
And I hear you, man.
I don't get it. I'm like, how do you write heroes that are bad at their jobs? I don't get it. And when they do something that's good, it doesn't make sense. It's convenient. It's just it's moronic, and I don't get it. And I think that's, our society right now is frustrating because everything that's going on in the world, I'm like, where's all the smart people? Where did common sense go? Where are the people that will step up and go, okay, here's what we're doing, and they're right? And I'm like, I felt that I grew up in that country. I mean, obviously that was not correct, but I mean, I think that at least people were making Star Trek knowing that there could be a world where people knew what they were doing. And now I feel like we live in a world that is people care more about their feelings than reality. And I'm like, you know what? If the dinosaurs show up or the alien, I want the aliens to invade, because at least it will eliminate so much of humanity in the first wave. So much of us will be gone, and good riddance.
Oh God, I had a good thought. No, I can't remember it. Of course,
I'm not even saying that I'm going to be one of the people that survives, but God, humanity needs a culling, and it would be great if that came at the hands of a giant alien spacecraft and whatever. You know, because it would the wheat from the chaff would be gone in an instant. And I think that we are so far up our own assholes, and we're navel gazing and all of this. It's like, give me a fucking break. The world doesn't care. The universe, one day our sun is going to go supernova, and you're going to be bitching about how you feel, and we're not going to be off this planet, and we're all going to fucking die. And it's because you haven't gotten over your bad self.
We're the Golga Frinchins from Douglas Adams and Hitchhikers.
Oh my God.
We're the telephone sanitizers and all the other middle people that really don't matter and really don't contribute to society. I understand, man.
You know, if you can't see yourself, if you can't descend into the infinite the total perspective vortex and see yourself in relation to the rest of the universe. Zaphod Beeblebrox goes in, he survives, and the Vogons are like, you've been into the vortex? I have. You survived? You saw yourself in relationship to the rest of the universe? I did. And what did you learn? Well, that I'm a really great guy. And if you can't, didn't I tell you I'm Zaphod Beeblebrox? Every human being should be able to go into the total perspective vortex and come out and think they're great. And until we can do that, we're doomed.
Oh, you're killing me, man. All right. Well, you know, people can hear the stream. So if you don't mind going a little bit longer, I wanted to get back to this idea of reboots and remakes and stuff. Because, I mean, it really, like, even some movies, like Flight of the Phoenix, the great James Stewart, Richard Attenborough movie. You know, I mean, and then they remake it with Dennis Quaid and Taye Diggs and all those guys. And it's like, they got a bunch of male models glistening in the desert sun. And it's like, compare that to George Kennedy and, you know, Richard Attenborough, like old men farting around in the desert and looking like hell, as they should, being out in the desert as long as they were. And it's just, again, when they try to remake these movies, they don't do it right. Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, one of the greatest 70s New York heist movies. And it's so, I always say it's like an R-rated Barney Miller. I love it. I mean, it really is.
Say that, like, where is the
movie.
Walter Matthau actor now? Right? I mean,
well,
old guys. I mean, I love it. That's what I loved about the 70s. Walter Matthau was a leading man.
He was an action hero. Laughing Policeman.
Yeah.
You know, Charlie Varick.
And because you believe these people looked real. There was, I hate to say the word because I use it every day, verisimilitude.
Absolutely.
You believed look, I love, we just did Jaws. Jaws is so great because your leading man is Roy Scheider and his wife is Lorraine Gary. They look like real people, but they still look like movie stars. They look like they belong on the screen, but you believe them. Nowadays, the Roy Scheider character, Sheriff Brody, be some handsome dude.
Ryan Gosling.
And it wouldn't work. The reason Jaws works is you believe everybody. Mayor Vaughn, Murray Hamilton. You know, every character in that film adds to the reality of what you're watching. Yep. Nowadays, people, you know what? I've always said that I have a theory that, like, Jaws 2 was the demarcation point for movies, because in Jaws 2, all the teenagers are weird and awkward looking, and the beautiful girl, the Ann Dusenberry, who's the most beautiful girl in the movie, she's beautiful, but realistically so. You've got a shot. You could date her, you know, and all the other characters, they look like Keith Gordon and all the other characters with their weird hair and their clothes, and they look real. Ever since after that movie, it's the difference between Stockard Channing in Grease and the characters in Grease 2. Hilarious.
Michelle Pfeiffer and yeah. Hilarious. You're killing me. That's great, man. You see, I agree with Tarantino, who said Rocky was kind of a turning point because happy endings were suddenly in vogue again, and Hollywood was like, all the studios like, oh, they don't want realism anymore. They want happy endings. And there's, you know, you can make that argument and stuff. It's okay, but it's a shame because really, you know, there were a lot of interesting, complex character studies in the 70s, and I think it kind of did go away with Rocky. So that's one of the ones I point to. I don't know, Larry, you got any thoughts on the cultural shift in films back then?
No, I was speaking of Jaws, that was the first movie I went to on a date. So I wasn't paying attention to Jaws and Close Encounters, Star Wars a little. I saw that, not on dates, but by the time Raiders came out, I was just like, I was all about girls.
This has come up a few times, and actually it even came up again when I talked to Howard Chaykin a couple months ago in terms of Joker and the reaction. And it's something Rob and I talked about, but Larry, I want to know your opinion. You saw Joker, didn't you, Larry? Or did you not?
No.
You did not see Joker.
I'm Batmaned out. I can't.
Interesting.
Take Batman anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, Batman is not our generation's Hamlet. I don't care what they're trying to tell us. And the Joker, I just it's. Well, I got a 12-year-old, so I'm all about like Chris Pratt movies and
I can hear you. I can see you.
Animations and stuff.
I can hear you, Kirk. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Chang. Thank you, General Chang. Bringing up your 12-year-old, Larry, I appreciate the fact that with your 12-year-old, you're showing him some really cool old movies, because the thing about Joker was so many people saw it that are younger and had never seen Taxi Driver or King of Comedy and didn't know the inspirations behind the film. And, I was talking about with Chaykin really is like, well, that's just cultural ignorance. And I'm like, yeah, but this generation is so catered to with their own entertainment. I'm not excusing them from it. I think that they would be smart of them to watch these older movies, but I'm like, they just don't see a need to, because they're being catered to in a way that when we were growing up, it wasn't that 24/7, cultural thing. Rob, are you smiling because you can't hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Now I can. I couldn't. You just came back.
All right, good deal. All right, there you are.
I have to say that Larry does shows with his son. YouTube or Facebook, YouTube shows, and I find, I like watching those because I'm completely fascinated by how the younger generation is assimilating all of this stuff. Because when I was a kid, there was none of this. There was no multi-generational genre stuff. Yep. My parents didn't care. They were not movie fans. And now as movie geeks, one of the great tragedies of my life is I don't have kids of my own. My girlfriend Elizabeth has kids, but I've never been able to indoctrinate. And I would have indoctrinated my kids in terms of what they should and shouldn't watch. But it's been fascinating to watch when Larry does a show with his son, how he perceives, how the son perceives things, and where we're coming from. And what I don't understand is when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to see everything. I didn't care if it was black and white. I didn't care if it was color. I needed to see in the wake of Star Wars, we've talked about this before, John, there was a book called Sci-Fi Now by Alan Frank. It was published in 1978. Yep. I have it right over there. And it was a pictorial history of the science fiction or fantasy films. And I'm like, I'm going to see every movie in this book. And nowadays, like I'll show Sophie, Elizabeth's youngest daughter, a movie. She can tell by the color of the film stock. She's like, if this is like an early 80s movie, I don't want to watch it. By the color of the film stock. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. It could be great. You could love this. And there's a weird, again, it comes, if it doesn't, like, to me, I knew that I didn't know this stuff. I never had this idea of everything had to come to me and I had to like it. I'm like, I need to go find in Sci-Fi Now. I want to read or see every one of those movies because I didn't know what they held for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is it going to mean? How am I going to feel? And that was what I wanted to know. And nowadays it's like, if this doesn't make me feel good, or if it's not exactly what I want, then I'm not going to watch it. And I don't get that.
I don't either.
I don't understand it at all.
Well, and also we were more forgiving by limited special effects, stop motion, and things like that. And again, kids are spoiled in the best way because finally technology has caught up with storytelling, and we're getting these incredible films and stuff. And then you don't have to do miniatures and stuff. But yeah, as you know, we appreciate the miniatures. I'll throw it out there because I don't think I've talked about it in a while. That Amazon Prime or it's on Amazon Prime. I don't think they made it. the super animation documentary about Jerry Anderson.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
good.
Yeah. And again, these models that they would make are just incredible. I got my little nephews to watch Thunderbirds.
Come on, man.
There you go.
Eagle
Attaboy.
transporter. I can't reach them, but I've got like 8 different Eagle transporters in here.
I am constantly watching observations and looking on the bookshelf, Rob. And I am always happy that you get your little prisoner paperback prominently propped up and everything for people to see behind you and things like that. It always cracks me up. But
well, I mean, look at what Larry's got.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
yeah,
come
Larry,
on, man.
Go through what's behind you, Larry.
I mean, is that the cue? Is that the? Do you have one of the soldiers from Encounter at Farpoint behind your head?
No. This let's see, which way are we going? That's
I
Captain
lost you. I don't know.
This is Captain Tucker's suit from Armageddon.
Wow.
It's got a replica helmet. There's
For me, Larry's still frozen, but I'll go. Okay, now you're back.
There's a prop guy named Ed Maricki who built a Space 1999 one.
Yeah,
so that's a replica, but it's from period parts. He somehow got a 1970s motorcycle helmet. I've got Richie Bohawk and Steve LeBoytoy. LeBoytoy, sorry, I massacred his name. Did the alien suit, environment suit, and I got an Ant-Man here.
Fantastic.
But what is it that's right behind you on the other side, but next to the space? The other side, right next to space.
The Captain Tucker suit.
That's
from
Armageddon.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Now I was thinking it was from Encounter at Farpoint. The soldier that's like, taking the cocaine out of the whatever it is.
We lost Larry. I don't know what happened there. I didn't yank him. Hopefully he'll re-sign on, and it might make things better.
Yeah, but I have to say, I mean, it is. Look, as I've always say this on my show all the time. I always say that. Welcome back. I always say that I have my own theory. The Burnett theory of pop culture is that pop culture lasts about 20 years.
Yep.
And after 20 years, it falls away.
It's a gamble
because pop culture is just that. It's pop culture. And if you were a kid that grew up in a world where Jurassic Park already existed, it's going to be really hard for you as a kid to go back and watch Clash of the Titans or
1 Million
or 1 million. Yeah, I mean, and that's just the way of the world.
Yep.
Now, when we were younger, we hadn't the post-geek singularity had not happened. We didn't get Star Wars. We didn't get all those things. And if you look at what happened in film from 1970, I'd even go back to like 76 to Logan's Run or Jaws or Exorcist. But in 77, Star Wars really changed everything. And after Star Wars, the world of imagination completely changed. And you go from Superman the movie in 78 to movies like Alien, a perfect film in 79, and even horror films like Dawn of the Dead and Phantasm in 80, Empire Strikes Back. And the world of imagination and pop culture was changed irrevocably. And it was amazing what happened. And there was no looking back. Everybody was looking forward. So you can't expect a kid that grows up now, even now, bullet time in the Matrix is old hat. I can do that I have an app on my phone to do that, whatever. But now everyone is looking for the next big thing. And by the way, I love the MCU. When I saw Avengers for the first time, I sat in the theater and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't fucking believe that I'm watching this. I couldn't believe that there was an Avengers movie and that we had seen Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America movies before we saw it. And I don't care what anyone says. Watching Infinity War and Endgame it's just an astonishing achievement in fantasy filmmaking, and the fact that it works at all. And I'm like, this is the world we live in, and this world is amazing. It's amazing.
I agree. Yeah, no, I know. And have you guys seen any of the movies that didn't make it to theaters, like Bloodshot or Birds of Prey? I have to confess, I haven't watched them yet, and I keep meaning to, but I haven't really felt the itch to really need to see those. So,
Well, also, I saw Bloodshot.
Okay.
And as a Valiant Comics fan, I watched this and I'm like, in this day and age, not to take away from the craftsmanship or everything, the movie was a little by the numbers and pedestrian, and it was an amalgamation of a bunch of different stuff. Who thought making Bloodshot the way it was made, after we've lived in post-Infinity War Endgame world, who thought that would fly? Like, why do you want to establish, why not do Archer and Armstrong? Or why not do something that establishes you as not a pastiche of 10 other different movies? And I just look at that, I'm thinking, wow, I think the people that made Bloodshot made it, well, we've got Vin Diesel. I get it, but you've made a movie that is a pastiche of the last 5 years.
Okay.
Why do that?
Interesting. Yeah, again, and like I said, still haven't seen Birds of Prey, so I can't comment on that. Now, here's television-wise, guys. Stargirl. What do you guys think? Have you watched it?
I have not seen it, but I've heard it's really good.
No,
I'm going
good. I honestly, guys, and Word Balloon viewers know that Jeff Johns is as a guy that's been on a lot, and I was thrilled that he came back, and I've seen the first 5 episodes, and it's fantastic.
I have to say, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with Jeff Johns, but my shelves are full of his work. I mean, I can just say that I've got the 2, like this second JSA Omnibus. Somebody told me it's like sells for $1,000. I'm just waiting for them to reprint it.
Wow.
But I mean, I'm a huge fan of his comic work. I've spent hundreds of dollars on Jeff Johns' work, and I'm happy that he's doing Stargirl. And if you like it, I'm like, all right. That's an endorsement I believe in. And
also, you'll appreciate, because another JSA collaborator, James Robinson, is on the writing staff.
Oh my God!
And that's something that Jeff revealed to me in my recap conversations with him about the show.
Starman.
Yeah. Jesus, I know. What a great series.
I haven't seen that show, but I did see the Legacy Effects video they put out of building the full-size Stripes robot. And that blew my mind. It made me want to watch the show.
Yeah.
And Luke Wilson is great.
Yeah.
Last guy I would think to play Stripesy, but he's fantastic. Amy Adams is fantastic. Really, the whole cast. And it's great because at the same time, the story about the teenagers is good, and the adult story is equally good. And there's a lot going on in Starman. And I really think it's one of those, it's the right tone for now, because I think it's an optimistic show. And it's a legitimate family show where literally there are characters that everybody can aspire to be rather than just identify with.
Well, look, I'm always happy when somebody creates great work. And if Jeff Johns is actually tapping in to this and he creates a great show, we all win in the end.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, as much as I might bitch and moan and complain about all this stuff, I want all of us to win. I want everybody to make great shit.
I'm with you.
Shouldn't we all?
Yeah.
But don't we all want to live in a world where everything is awesome? And that's why when I feel people phone it in, I'm like, I get it. You're cashing a paycheck. Life is too short. Why don't you make something great? Make something great.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I wanted to talk a second about the Blumhouse stuff and just their ridiculous success and the ability. And also, Rob, don't you and Larry, don't you think that because of what's going on with COVID and the social distancing and stuff, now micro budget movies are going to be even more prevalent, and ways to get around the toughness of the virus and stuff. And I mean, really, the people to follow are the Blumhouse people, because they seem to make these incredible shoestring movies that are great stories.
If I'm in, you're back. I have friends that have made Blumhouse movies. I think what Jason Blum has done in this day and age has revolutionized Hollywood. I think it's exactly what is needed. His methodology of making movies for $5 million and finding out if you come in and knock it out of the park, then you have Universal's marketing department will put it out theatrically. And I think it's brilliant. I do not understand why every studio in Hollywood has not done what Jason Blum has done, because, and you know what? He'll even come out and go, well, you know, maybe the greatest movie we ever made was Whiplash. J.K. Simmons won an Academy Award, but then he'll say in the same breath, made no money. I wouldn't have made it if I knew it was going to make any money. I don't care if he would have won an Academy Award. I would not have made that movie. What he's done, look at M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan's career was moribund. He'd made terrible films. The Happening. I mean, Lady in the Water, his version of The Last Airbender. M. Night Shyamalan, mad props to him, goes back and makes The Visit under the Blumhouse model. Knocks it out of the park, makes a ton of money, then makes Split, makes $200 million worldwide on a $8 million budget or something that he co-financed. What they're doing is exactly the way Hollywood should work. Leigh Whannell, Invisible Man, made for $7 million, coming off of Upgrade. Great little movie. Here's a guy that is the steward of the Saw franchise. He has a lot of money, but he comes and works within the Blumhouse model, knocks it out of the park. Every single studio. But you know what? Jason Blum is him. And Kevin Feige, there are not two guys in Hollywood. Most people don't know what the fuck they're doing in Hollywood. And Jason Blum and Kevin Feige made 13 Marvel movies before the MCU. He saw what worked and what didn't. From Ghost Rider to Elektra to X-Men to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man to Daredevil. He saw what worked and what didn't. He honed his craft after working for Richard Donner. He figured shit out. There's no one in Hollywood that gets that kind of experience and knows what's going on. Most people who are at that position have no clue. And it's great to see both Jason Blum and Kevin Feige as these visionary producers who have set up paradigms that work.
Yep. Agreed.
It's amazing. And I don't know why all the studios aren't following that lead. Then again, there's not people to bank on. And you know what? Let's face it, Star Trek could really use a Kevin Feige, but all we have is Alex Kurtzman and company. People that, by the way, lest we forget, J.J. Abrams I was never a Star Trek fan. Never a Star Trek fan. He set the tone in 2009.
You're right.
And now his cronies are like, apparently we were never Star Trek fans either, but we will suck off the Paramount CBS teat for as long as you can. Why doesn't Paramount find another filmmaker? And here's what I would say. You've already paid for Eric Jedrickson's script for Star Trek The Beginning. Go find someone with a fealty to canonical Star Trek to go make that movie for $75 million. I'll tell you, it'll be a hit. You cast it well. You need to find somebody who's a visionary, and do not allow anyone involved with Bad Robot, Secret Hideout, or anyone involved. Go
Agreed.
Make a separate Star Trek franchise that has fealty to canonical Star Trek and make it for $75 million, because you can. It can be done. It'll make a lot of money, and you will set up competition with the assholes that are running Star Trek now. Go do it. You've already paid for the script. It exists. Retitle it. It's not Star Trek The Beginning. It's post-Enterprise. It's canonical. It's about the Romulan War. Go make that. Go make that. You already own it. Go do it. Go make it happen. Somebody, you'll find some filmmaker that will want to do it. And you know what? You can't lose, because it couldn't be worse than what you're making now. Just saying.
I hear you, man. I'm hoping, Larry, I don't know what you think, but I honestly hope that with the remerger of Paramount and Viacom and CBS, that moving forward, we will see other filmmakers and other voices. I don't know what Secret Hideout's vice grip is, if there is room for others.
No, they've got they've got contracts.
Yeah,
But
they
you know
got
what?
pictures of somebody with a goat or something because the second Kurtzman said, I wanted to go on a tri-state murder spree.
What? I'm sorry, we missed the quote, Larry. Say it again. What did Kurtzman say?
He said Star Trek is not aspirational. And I wanted to go on a tri-state murder spree.
What?
Hearing that the guy who said that is running things.
Is running it, yeah.
It's just a shit show.
I guess it doesn't surprise me. That's true.
Well,
All right, go ahead.
Script is already owned.
Yeah.
It's already been written. They've already owned it. And you know what'll happen? It'll get noted to death by a bunch of know-nothings.
Right.
I would say to you guys, there's a few things. And by the way, the writer, Jedrinson, knows what needs to be changed. I would say you already own it. You already paid for it. Look, I did coverage on umpteen versions of Speed Racer in the early 90s. It got made 15 years later. This script was written in, I want to say it was November of 2015 was when it was, or November of 2005 when it was done. Paramount owns it. Find the script for Star Trek: The Beginning, retitle it. It's the beginning of a trilogy. You're starting your streaming series. Don't let anyone currently involved with Star Trek make it. Find filmmakers that have fealty to your canonical Star Trek and go make it on your own because you can do it and you've already had it written. You've already paid for it. You own it. Star Trek: The Beginning, Eric Jedrinson, Band of Brothers. He'll come back and write the other two movies. He already knows what they are. Go make that. It's done. Go find it. If you want, send me an email. I'll send you the script.
What streaming services does everybody have? I have Amazon, DC Universe, Netflix. I have access to Hulu. I have access to Peacock because I've held on to my cable like an idiot. Is that it? I think that's it. And then I'm saying the premium ones that you have to pay for because obviously there's Pluto, there's Tubi, which I think are great services, by the way. But like Larry, what do you have streaming wise?
We have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, CBS All Access because fuck me, Star Trek's on it.
Exactly. Apple. I also have Apple TV, by the way, and I've told Rob a million times. And Larry, as an astronaut nut, have you watched For All Mankind?
No.
Oh, dude. So that's all right. I don't think Rob's seen it yet either.
I haven't seen Doom Patrol either, but oh my god! Every time I see a clip from All of Mankind, I'm like, oh, I got to see that.
They got to put it on. I have to believe they're going to put it on Blu-ray or something.
Yeah, I'll buy the Blu-rays.
Yeah.
It's so, and honestly, or even picking it up on Apple, episode by episode. It's really, really interesting, and I hope that they make a second season.
Boy, is that my kind of thing, though. The Russians get to the moon first. I mean, I kind of feel like I missed the boat not coming up with that one.
Do you remember, Larry, before I ask Rob about his streamers, there was a comic book called I want to say it was called Star City. It was called Star City. And the guy who made it contacted me because he heard me talking about it once on Word Balloon. I don't know if he ever actually made the comic or not, but he had the conceptual art. And essentially, and I've seen some sort of film cheaply made where a Soviet cosmonaut from the present goes in time and is in the 60s, winds up in the 60s during the space race. And he's got all the knowledge to change history. Does he do it or not? And I think it was such a fascinating concept and stuff. And I don't know if you ever ran into that comic back in the day.
That sounds great, though.
Yeah, I would totally watch that. I mean, I love that stuff.
Yeah. So what streamers have you got, Rob?
What do we have? We've got Netflix, Hulu, Shudder, because I love Shudder.
Yes, you're a horror fan, absolutely.
Amazon, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. Well, I have HBO Max, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I was curious about it because I can't get it yet because I'm a Roku guy.
Yeah. Look, I think their launch was. I love Disney Plus in terms of what they've done and in terms of the technology. I think it's really intuitive. I really like it a lot. But I mean, all of these streaming services are. I want to get Peacock. I don't have Peacock only because I want access to the Universal Library, and it all really comes down to content. and who's making what. We do not have Apple. And I want to watch For All Mankind, but Apple just doesn't have enough stuff. Like, why pay it monthly when they've got like 8 shows to watch?
I'm hip. No, I don't blame you. And Peacock, it's okay because again, I get it through Xfinity.
Right.
But I'm disappointed that they haven't gone deep, and I worry about that with HBO Max and some of these others that are popping up. And it's like they've got these, and again, we're all big old movie buffs and everything, and they've got these wonderful libraries. And I'm really one of the reasons why I hang on to cable is to hang on to Turner Classic Movies. And and I'm surprised these streamers aren't being a little more aggressive. And again, I don't have HBO Max, so I don't know how deep they go into Warner's library and stuff.
Well, I think to me, the great idea behind all of these streaming platforms is that, like with Disney Plus, I would expect everything that Disney has ever made should be on Disney Plus eventually. It should be a repository of the entire legacy of the studio. And the great thing about Disney Plus is I like their interface, but every kid that is born now until, Doomsday, Entropy, whatever, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, every kid that's born should have Disney Plus and grow up with that legacy. The legacy of Disney, the legacy of everything they bought, Fox, Star Wars, whatever, Lucasfilm. And the same is true of Warner Brothers. And I think for me, the important thing about the franchises or the streaming services is they've got to protect their everything. I want to see the legacy, the rich cinematic legacy of all of these studios up on their streaming services. I want to see it all.
I agree.
Everything. And that should be the goal. And the interesting thing is it eventually, it's like, well, people are only interested in the new stuff. Yeah, but once you get everything up there, you've got legacy. I mean, it's funny when you go back and you watch like a 40-year-old TV show, you're like, oh, that's you discover it and you find it and you watch it. And it's like, that's kind of cool. Sure. And with Disney has a lot of like The Wonderful World of Disney. Hell, I wish, I know rights issues are problematic, but the Mickey Mouse Club, all that stuff, you want to have it be available at your fingertips, because once it's available, people will be interested. They'll find it. And you know what? It'll make us better as people.
Think about the newsreels. Think about the newsreels that Fox Movie Tone News, and how they literally were the only news source as far as, motion pictures and certainly pre-television in America. Yeah. And that kind of like legacy of the 20th century and stuff. And why isn't that stuff up there? I don't know.
Because ultimately people are not interested, but they would be if they could sit down and watch it. Like, being on YouTube, I watch a lot of YouTube clips. And so things are thrown my way. I love watching old Academy Awards clips, like so-and-so winning the Academy Award in 1968. Oh, yeah. Or I love all of that. Yeah. I love all that stuff. I mean, maybe I'm different than, say, the 20-year-olds, but to have it all available, can you imagine what human history would have been like if we had video technology 2,000 years ago? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tonight from Golgotha, the crucifixion on CNN. And
in CBS back in the 50s, they used to do You Are There, and it was Walter Cronkite, the newsman, doing recreations of historic moments, and they had the assassination of Julius Caesar. Brutus, can we get a word from you? And they treated it like news, and it was fantastic. It was hilarious, and the ones that exist are fun to watch.
Yeah, and you look at that and you're thinking, what happened? What happened to our society? I just think that gosh, I mean, think about where we're going to be in 1,000 years, assuming we're still here. I'd like to think we are. There's no extinction event happening, but if we're here, imagine all of this stuff still existing and you being able to preserve culture. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing?
Agreed.
I mean, I think it's pie in the sky, maybe, but the Star Trek, the Starship Discovery is in some cloud somewhere 1,000 years in the future, which just an AI and some dude dancing with the AI. So you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Well, maybe they're going to take your idea, Rob, for Voyager in terms of, because it really does sound like the premise for season 3 of Discovery in terms of that they're cut off from Starfleet. and all they've got are the values.
No, it's all going to be about building the Federation back up. It's going to be annoying and stupid, and it won't be. It'll be ill-conceived, and it'll be really dumb. And Michael Burnham will become, I don't know, the revolutionary whatever. I'm not saying I'm not going to watch it. This is what I can't stand. I have to watch it. I don't even have a choice.
You, man.
I mean, I buy like Una McCormack's like hardcover Star Trek Picard books because I have to have every Star Trek book ever published. I mean, I wish, these people would look. Alan Dean Foster, the Unsettling Stars. He wrote a book 10 years ago that apparently Bad Robot didn't want to get published. So the man wrote a book along with 3 other authors that they wouldn't publish, and now it gets published 10 years later.
Wait a minute. All right, so he wrote an original Star Trek story and not just
he wrote a novel about the Kelvin timeline characters.
Okay.
Along with there was 4 novelists who did.
Okay.
And Bad Robot, they sold all those people out, like they're video game people, because Bad Robot realized that CBS was never going to relinquish the merchandising rights that they wanted. So Alan Dean Foster's book, now it was just published 11 years after Star Trek 09 came out, because those motherfuckers are assholes.
Yeah.
They're assholes.
I'm just excited that Alan, even writing Kelvin timeline Star Trek. I mean, I love Alan Dean Foster.
Oh, wait, hang on. Let me give him a prop here.
Please.
Here it is. Here's his new Alan Dean Foster's Star Trek novel.
God damn. All right,
now it's called The Unsettling Stars. It was written 10 years ago, although it's copywritten this year. And what's interesting about this is, of course, the Simon & Schuster, Paramount's trying to sell it off, their publishing division.
Yes.
So they're trying to get rid of it. Now, this is under a different imprint. It's not Simon & Schuster. That's why it's oversized, to give it a little bit more prestige. But God love Alan Dean Foster for the Humanx Commonwealth, the flicks and the flicks and pimp. What is it? Pimp. I can't remember. Flicks and pink. His Humanix Commonwealth books.
Oh,
like Nora Crystal Tears and Ice Rigger and Catch-A-Lot and all those things. His original stuff.
Oh, cool.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad to see a book that was written 11 years ago finally come out that Bad Robot didn't allow to be published until now.
I'll be buying it after we're done talking. Am I right, Rob? Didn't you interview with Melissa Snodgrass about Measure of a Man? And
Melinda,
Melinda, pardon me.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, if you want to go, I did interviews for my 400th episode. I interviewed Melinda. I interviewed Bill Sienkiewicz. I interviewed
Barbara Crampton, right?
Barbara Crampton from Reanimator. And then later, I interviewed David Goodman, the executive producer of The Orville, who's also the president of the Writers Guild of America, which I did after my 400th episode.
That was great.
And Brian Fuller I interviewed. Yeah. And you can see those full interviews on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
Excellent.
And so they're good.
Do more long form interviews, Rob. You're very good at it, and I knew that from, again, your special feature work with the Next Generation and the like, and the Enterprise guys. You talked to Rick Berman and Brandon Braga about Enterprise. And everything.
I think you also should watch Larry's show with his son, because I really enjoy seeing where the younger generation is at. What are kids going to watch? How can we inspire the next generation? How can we make kids love this stuff too? Not because we foist it upon them, but because they like it themselves.
Absolutely.
I think it's really important. What you're doing with your son's a really good thing.
Yeah, tell us the title of that, Larry, and where people can get it.
It's called Door Court. It's on YouTube. We do it whenever the feelings strike us. Well, I have a great story about him, though. He's been cranking through Community. He loves Community.
That's great.
And how old is he?
12.
Wow, okay.
So he's seen it 3 times all the way through. And he got so excited at that hashtag 6 seasons in a movie thing that he actually wrote a screenplay. It's 76 pages. It's called, I forget what it's called, Advanced Life Saving. And it's Troy gets lost on his, if you know the show, they wrote Troy out, the Donald Glover character, by having him go around the world on a sailboat. So he gets, Abed gets a call from him, and he gets the band back together to go save Troy. And fortunately, through my publishing, my old Diamond rep, the Diamond Comics distributors that are in the news, he works for Starburns Industries now. So I told him, I was like, hey, Trevor, can I get this under Dan Harmon's eyes? And he goes, he's like, well, you can send it to me and I'll see what I can do. So my kid is like over the moon. So what Rob was saying, like, we live in this golden age of awesome.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to have written William Shatner a 5-letter fan mail and a Star Trek episode when I was 12. But, that just wasn't a thing but apparently now that's what you can do. Whatever you're into, somebody knows a guy who knows a guy, and you can get it under their eyeballs. And I just think that's amazing.
Larry, what do you think it is about Community that made your son fall in love with it? What do you think about that show? Why that show, and why did he fall in love with it?
Well, he's all about the 22-minute sitcom now. So he likes Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's got a really funny sense of humor. His mom is really dry, and I'm a lunatic. So he just splits the difference between just slapstick and super dry.
Right.
So anything that is really well written, like he likes Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Community. And I think Community he can keep watching because he loves the surreal nature of it, and the meta, the Abed character is commenting. He's like Spock kind of, where he's of the story but not really in it.
Yeah,
he's commenting on what's happening around. And I think your preteens, and he's going to be 13 in 2 weeks. I think that he just really responds to the I'm kind of in my parents' story here in the world, but I'm not really of it yet. And so I think that's why he likes Community.
Now, did you when you were raising him, how did you control his viewing, and did you show him things that were important to you and explain hey, we're going to watch this together, I'd like to show this to you? How did that work out when you were raising him?
Well, we're a media family. My wife's a computer big brain web chick, and I'm me. So media has always been a part of our interaction with the world. And so I would just be watching Star Trek and he'd waddle in. And so I sort of curated his Star Trek experience.
Right.
He loves Dr. McCoy for some reason.
Fantastic.
And he's all about the original series. He doesn't really care about the other stuff. He's aware of it, but he's just he won't watch the new ones with me. He's like, no, that's not the good stuff. Put Omega Glory on again.
He's a very smart child.
Awesome, man.
So, yeah. I mean, we're going through. It's funny you brought up James Bond because we happened to watch Never Say Never Again the other day. And I told him the whole rights issue with Thunderball. He's like, okay, we have to watch that tomorrow. So,
fun.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat. He's sort of interacting with the world on the media world on his own now.
Go on. No, continue, Larry. It's all right.
No, I was going to say he's the guy in charge now of our TV watching.
Funny.
because I kind of don't even know how to use our TV. We have this giant 3D TV thing, and I'm like, why do we have 15 remote controls to turn on the soundbar? And where are they? It's so yeah, it's fun. So that's kind of why we do the door chords.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I got you. Yeah,
that's
awesome.
I
like that. I've dipped in and watched a few of those. I mean, I'm always fascinated by seeing the next generation of kids explore pop culture. And it's I lived for a while after I got divorced. I lived at with some the most delightful couple in the world, and their kids were young, and they were big. David, who's an actor, was brought them up watching the Marx Brothers and all this, and they were James Bond fans. And Liam, their oldest son, when he was 9, we took him to the ArcLight Theater here in LA. They had a screening of Goldfinger. And it was the first time he had ever seen a James Bond movie in the theater. And he hadn't seen an older Bond film. And he was so excited. And when he came out, the first thing he said was, James Bond wore a hat. Because, in the opening, when the gun barrel, he's wearing a... I mean, It was so amazing that was the first thing that he keyed on. He loved the whole experience of going to the theater. But you never know. You just never know what kids are all about and what they key on. And they don't know unless you show them. And it's always great when I think parents are allowing their kids to go through a journey, and here's this information, and if you want it, you can take it. If you don't have to, but Check it out.
You know, I'm sad to say my two nephews were hilarious about Star Trek. The older one likes the Kelvin movies, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. But the younger one was great. I was living with them, and it was when Spike was running Next Generation, and one episode of Next Gen was on, and he's like, you know, this show drives me nuts. All these people do is they sit in rooms and they talk, and then some aliens come and you think they're going to shoot each other. Nope, let's go in the room and talk some more. And I'm pounding the floor laughing because I'm like, he ain't wrong. Yeah. It's like, unfortunately, he's looking for something else that isn't Star Trek. But yeah, it cracked me up. And he's, you know, he still feels the same way. He's like, I know you like it, man. He goes, I don't know. He goes, not enough action. I'm like, well, it's a thinking man show. It's all right. What are you going to do? Yeah. Too funny. All right. It looks like we're freezing too much. So maybe we should call it a day, gentlemen.
All right.
Otherwise, good. I mean, you both have been on for marathon discussions. This is a short one in the word balloon in the Pantheon, but no, this is great. Honestly, I'm always happy to talk, and I just kind of wanted to shoot the breeze episode, and I'm glad the three of us were able to get together. So again, Hills Run Red comes out next week
on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, so that's fantastic. And Dork Court,
yeah. Also.
Right?
My Spunky Bean columns on S.H.I.E.L.D. everybody's seeming to like those. Season 7 of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s coming up. It's almost over. So, yeah.
Yeah. How many are they making? How many episodes have they making, Larry? Is it only?
Oh, man. You know, I'm putting the collection of the columns together. I'm halfway through the 3rd season. It's on page 170. So,
okay.
Oh, my God. That's going to be 300 to 400 pages long.
I caught the first episode of the latest season, and I'm intrigued where they are and everything.
They went nuts once they heard that they were renewed for 2 years. They just I don't know if you guys watch Legends of Tomorrow. That just Banana Cakes CW.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
I think it's hilarious.
S.H.I.E.L.D.'s doing that this season.
That's great.
Everything on the screen, and it's awesome.
I hope to be talking to Loeb, Jeff Loeb, in the next few weeks. Yeah, we've talked about it and stuff, and he's an old friend. So that's one of the benefits for doing a podcast for 15 years. I am new to video. But audio-wise, you know, I've been going since 2005. That's why I got the Rolodex.
Yeah, but you've been killing it with the video.
Thanks, buddy. You're a good man, and I appreciate. Hey, man, thank you for the recommendation on StreamYard. It's wonderful, and I'm learning. I mean, I'm an old radio guy by nature, and really, this is the most extensive video work I've done ever. But I've got editing software, and I'm learning all the bells and whistles. You saw the intro to Scene Missing that we started with.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's interesting is now what I love about this new era is everyone's now used to looking at this stuff. So whether you're watching it, the StreamYards thing and all that, it's been really we've changed the paradigm of what people will watch.
Agreed.
Because everyone's been sheltering at home. So I love that. So what it's allowed people to do is a lot of people that you would never hear their voice are getting on StreamYards and talking and doing shows. It's great. It's great to see you embrace this.
Absolutely, man. No, and I know that a lot of people wind up on YouTube and that it's second only to Google as far as destinations online. And I have enjoyed discovering people. I mean, I certainly knew Rob through his stuff like Free Enterprise, Larry, and even Femme Fatales, even a few episodes of Femme Fatales, the fine Cinemax noir show. That
which Mark Altman created and produced, and actually Larry published a comic that Mark and Steve Crozier wrote.
Yep, that's true. Elvis Van Helsing.
Hilarious, man.
Yeah. So he published it. You did, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. And I messaged Mark when he was still in Europe before he came back, and whatever he was shooting in Europe or whatever.
He's doing Pandora season 2.
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm gonna have to see if he's available while everyone's still locked down.
Oh man, you should. I love it. I talk to Mark on Messenger every time a Star Trek comes out, and man, you should. It's amazing. San Francisco hasn't cracked into the ocean. Every time I open up one of those things, it's like, oh, Mark, you can't say that.
Well, I respect the Trek experts and that they want to stay positive. On their podcast, and which now is you can watch them and on Stir, which is terrific, man.
You can watch them on Stir. It's good. You know, the fact that Dean Devlin, produces that show, he lets us shoot in his. Well, he did before this,
right?
But it's great. It's a lot of fun, and the guests have been great. I'm glad. I'm just happy to participate in any way, shape, or form. But it's been What a cool thing. And I listen to all the podcasts, even though I'm not a part of all of them. They're great.
They are.
And I think Mark and Darren do a really great job.
And Darren does a killer Gene Roddenberry, and I'm a mimic from my radio days and stuff. So I'm certainly paying attention. He has cracked the code on how to do Roddenberry.
He's
fantastic.
He does great. He does great. I used to make him do Christopher Walken, and he does great. He's so funny. He does great impressions. Really
That's
good.
terrific. That's awesome, man. Well, boys, keep up the good work, and thank you for joining me tonight. You're both welcome back anytime. And I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future.
I can't hear
All
you.
right.
I don't. Okay, good.
That's apropos for tonight, I guess.
All right.
I
Thanks
can hear
so
you,
much,
Larry.
John.
Oh, no, you can hear you all. Now I can hear. So are we going away now?
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up, Rob. It's all right.
Good night, Rob.
I appreciate
live long and prosper, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, boys. Very
All
good
right.
job. I'm pulling you out of the stream,
Okay.
and I'll wrap things up here on Word Balloon and say thank you very much. Oops, there we go. Oh, Larry's still there. There we go. Now I'm back. Thanks a lot, everybody. It was a great time talking. I'm sorry that we had our own intercommunication issues, but I hope you enjoyed the show. More great Word Balloon Live coming next week. Thank you very much. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy.